Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
For those who don't know, years ago when I got started in this, it started back in January of 1990. Well, it started actually in February of 1995. January 1995, I had left my job in public accounting, and I just, wanted to go out on my own as a private practicing attorney. Actually, I really had more entrepreneurial aspirations, which I guess I've found. But I figured practicing law would be the next best step to doing that, if you will. And so I struggled in the beginning because it was just kind of hard to figure things out, and I won't get into that too much here. But by about mid-February, I had networked into this organization that I now own. It had a different name at the time. And there was a new chapter. I became its first president. And between myself and a few others, one I'll shout out to Gina Winterstein, who is still with the organization. One of my first directors, a franchisee, been very, very, very successful through it, and very supportive of others as well. And we grew that chapter. At one point, it hit 50 people, which was too big, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it was a very successful chapter for a lot of years. But through that experience of being president, I saw lots of different things and learned things along the way. I think we all kind of, at our core, humans, we're really good at building relationships because that's how we survive. But when we start infusing those relationships with the professional aspects, it becomes challenging, and we're a little unsure of ourselves. And so we all kind of struggle with it. I know I struggled with it. I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to quite get there. So to a degree, I was all thumbs. But I saw lots of things along the way and learned things I should do and things that I shouldn't do. There was one particular person who was in the group with us, and his name is Bob. His name is actually Bob. I won't give you his last name. It doesn't matter. But Bob was a great guy. Bob sold computers. This was back in 95, 96. This was back in the day when you could make money selling computers. Nowadays, it's, they're making money on software, and they don't even sell that. They rent that anymore. But Bob sold computers, and this was a point in time where the state of Ohio, the governor of the state, had signed a bill into law earmarking $1 billion. That's a 1 with 9 zeros. It's a lot of money to make sure that all the schools in the state of Ohio had computers. And if you had computers, get those upgraded. If you didn't have computers, let's get computers in the school. Let's get the kids of Ohio. Let's get them into, on solid ground before we head into this 21st century. And so, when Bob came to the chapter, and many of us knew of this, but we really, we didn't know a whole lot about it, but he just came in and said, listen, it's free money. It's a win-win. If you know anybody who is in a school system, that would be a great referral for me, because I can get in there and I can show them how to take advantage of this. In fact, I just helped the school district sold, they bought 100 computers. It was free money to them. It was a big commission for me. And, it's great. So if you know people in school systems, let me know. 100 computers, 50 computers, wow, it sounds great. Let me tell you a little bit about Bob. Bob was a good guy. He was a good member. He came to all the meetings. He gave referrals. He was an officer, if I recall. He was very engaged, doing all the things that you need to do, not just in the AmSpirit Business Connections world, but if it's BNI or LickTip or H7. There's lots of these organizations out there, and they're all good organizations. But you need to be engaged. It's network work. You have to put effort in. And you've got to be there, and you've got to show up, and you've got to be a good person. And he went to socials and did all the things that you would expect a good member to do. And if you're involved in these organizations, or really any organizations, the chamber, anything, Kiwanis, Rotary, there are certain people who are good members and they're involved. And that was Bob. After a year, Bob stood up at the meeting and he just said, just had an announcement. Listen, I'm leaving the group. I'm, you know, I'm leaving. I love you guys. I'll always be referring you guys. We'll stay in contact. But it just hasn't worked out for me. I haven't gotten any referrals, and shame on us. We didn't really do a good job of keeping track of who was getting and who was giving referrals, and taking the time to pay attention to the people who weren't. But neither here nor there. He was just letting us know. Listen, I haven't got any referrals, and I'm even going to be moving on. And people were saddened by this. Again, he was a great member, just a likable person. And it wasn't like he was dying or leaving town or anything like that. But when we weren't going to see him every Thursday morning like we normally would, and it was just a little bit of gravity, a little bit of glue to keep us into our world, if you will. Well, people express their sadness. Bob, we're really sorry to see you go. It's unfortunate. I feel bad. I feel like I've let you down. And there are a number of people. There's probably 30 some people in the group at this point in time. Really feel like we've let you down. And one person chimed in and said, "Yeah, I would have loved to have used you. I don't know anybody I don't know anybody in the school system. I don't know. We were all either newly married or single. If we had kids, they were young kids and they weren't really in the school system yet. This was everybody in the group. So we weren't really running in those school circles. And, people, share that. We just don't run in those circles. And I don't know anybody who needs 50 computers, 100 computers. We bought a new one last year somebody else said, yeah, we needed to get new printers. And somebody else, lightning struck our building and we had to get all new monitors, something like that. So people were kind of sharing their little onesie twosie buys that they were doing. And as they were doing that, Bob's jaw kind of dropped. And he said, I make a lot of money selling a computer here, a computer there. I said, make a lot of money selling, keyboards and mouses and things like that. And someone said, Bob, you never told us that. I would have loved to have bought a computer from you. I went to the store and bought it. Amazon wasn't around at that point. I went somewhere else. I figured I was wasting your time if I was going to be coming to you with one computer. Well, long story short, Bob stayed in the chapter. He has since moved on. He went to medical school, from what I understand. He's a practicing physician, I believe, in Chicago, but he's not in the chapter anymore. I've lost track of him. He's too good for me. But at any rate, he did really well, from that point forward. And that really became a staple presentation within the AmSpirit Business Connections world. Every member that comes in gets a write-up of, not that whole story, but gets a write-up of it. And we call it the ABCs of asking for referrals. And it's something that we really want our members to understand. Now, what's an A referral? An A referral for Bob was selling 100 computers to a school system. That was an A referral for Bob. And we all have A referrals in our lives. Now, it was not out of the realm of possibility in that day and time, because the money was $1 billion. That goes a long way. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility that Bob could network into other school systems, and he probably did, and had big paydays like that. But those big paydays don't come along often, right? And whatever your profession is, think for a moment about that client you reasonably dream about when you're driving around. And not something crazy like you win the lottery kind of a client, but that you reasonably dream about, that, what, I could handle this, I could service this, and it would make for a great month, that one piece of business, a great month, quarter, or maybe even a year. That's an A referral. Certainly you can ask your network for those A referrals. You just have to understand that they're not going to come along all the time. And so you have to be ready with others. And so it's the B referral. The B referral is that referral that you typically see, you're typically dealing with. I'll use realtors a lot of times when I talk about this. because realtors generally, depending upon the locale, all realtors deal within a certain range. There are some realtors who are dealing with, luxury properties. I have a son who lives down in Miami Beach. I'll look at the real estate down there. And you have realtors down there that are dealing with luxury condominiums, and on the small end, you're talking $1 million. On the big end, forget it, right? It's just, but that's the range they deal with. If you're in Ames, Iowa, and no offense to anybody in Ames, Iowa, but the real estate market's just a little bit different, and $1 million is going to buy you a really nice house in Ames, Iowa, maybe a whole street of houses. I don't know. Um, but but realtors in their particular locale are going to be dealing in a certain range, and those are the B referrals. Here's my range. I'm dealing between $200,000 and $300,000 or $350,000. That's what I typically see. That's what a B referral is. Asking for the things that you typically see. And for Bob, I'm not even really sure what the B referral is, what his typical referral was, but he certainly let us know what his C referral is. And what's a C referral? A C referral is that referral that you're willing to service, but you're not necessarily excited to get out of bed for. That's how I always looked at it. When I give this presentation, I talk about when I practice law. I would tell people, or I do tell people, I was never excited about doing somebody's will. It's very personal. You're getting a lot of personal information. You're talking about what's going to happen after you're gone. It's just not a fun conversation. They have a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that come up, a lot of changes. They're really thinking about it. And you never really can you never really can bill for all your time. You just the way it is. And just with a simple will, it's just the way it is. So I was never excited about it. I never got out of bed. Hey, honey, I'm going to go do a simple will today. I never, that was never part of my conversation. But I did them. I did the simple wills for a couple reasons. One, a few $100s here, a few $100s there, it keeps the lights on. Those things add up. I remember at one point early on, my wife was, she's the accountant of the family. She was looking at my numbers and she said, wow, you make a lot of money just on these small little, not just wills, but small little engagements. Yeah, you take them. You know, a few of them pay the rent, a couple pays the light bill and, whatever else. And they add up over time. They do add up. But the other thing about C referrals is that C referrals tend to grow into bigger things. So for Bob, the C referral was, yeah, I'll just sell you one computer, and he never got out of bed and, hey, I'm excited about this. Maybe he did, probably not. He was hoping for that, the 100 computer referral. But he was willing to do it because he knew, come in and establish a relationship. And it's like, wow, you sold me that machine. That is great. It's so much faster than these other machines. You know what? Get me 9 more. And those things happen. I'm very fond of saying little things lead to big things. Big things don't lead to little things. They don't. Big things tend not to happen, short of a little thing. I always start with a little thing, right? Somebody comes in, and this had happened to me. Somebody comes in to get a will done, and you strike up a relationship with them, and you find out they've got a business, and next thing you know, you've got a 15-year relationship with them, helping them with the business. And this simple little will that you did that you probably didn't get $100 for was, the best investment of your time you ever made. And so what happened with Bob is a lesson for us all, is that we need to look at our businesses and we need to, first of all, understand what your A, B's, and C's are. You talk to a lot of AmSpirit members and they'll tell you what's your A, B's, and C's, and they'll go through and they'll give you a litany. These are our A's, these are our B's, and these are our C's. Because these are things that we talk about. So if you're not in the organization, if you're another organization, or you're not in an organization at all, I encourage you to really think about your network and the referrals you ask for in that manner. Now, I'm not suggesting that you serve one any better than the other. Some people give me pushback on this. I serve all my clients the same. Great, you should. But you have to understand that all clients are not the same. And all referrals don't come to you the same. And if you get fixated on just asking for the A referral, as Bob did, you might end up disappointed. You might catch lightning in a bottle. It might happen. It does happen from time to time, but those are the exceptions and not the rule. Generally, the rule comes down to the B's and the C's. So know what your A's are, know what your B's are, know what your C's are, and those can change over time, right? What was once my C referral might now, I don't want to deal with it referral. Talk to my assistant, or your A's become your B's and you get a whole new A out there. For me now, an A is, meeting with a potential franchisee. A B, somebody starting a chapter. C, somebody who's just going to be a member. Whereas years ago, somebody wanted to be a member. Hey, let's go to lunch. I want to talk to you. So these things change, but understand what these are and talk about those different levels from time to time. Today I'm going to talk about an A referral. Today I'm going to talk about a couple C referrals. Keep me in mind with respect to these things. So just an important little lesson. Don't end up like Bob 1.0. Be more like Bob 2.0. Bob 2.0 made a whole lot more money than Bob 1.0.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.